Is it possible as a writer to find empathy for the characters you're creating? The answer is quite simple and was hiding in plain sight this whole time for me. It's backstory. Now, let me tell you that the word backstory I've heard so many times honestly doesn't mean anything for me. Having gone to film school and have listened to so much podcasts and books, the word backstory just doesn't even have any meaning, because often when the word backstory is used, it's thrown out there to mean a generic, large-scale, traumatic thing that usually involved parents dying. So as a writer, I've always been way more interested in what's happening right now in this moment. So I have really steered clear from the concept of backstory because I'm way more concerned with knowing what the characters are experiencing this moment, right now, here and now, what's the conflict. And part of the reason I have sort of a bad taste in my mouth with the concept of backstory is a few things. One, I think of flashbacks. Now, I honestly hate flashbacks. Partly, a lot of times, and not just in film, but in books, I hate it when books jump way back and they go back and forth. I'm not interested in going back and forth. Like I said, I want to know what's happening here and now. And so often in books and in films, you build momentum and it's really whiplash to be thrown back to a flashback when really I just want to keep the momentum of finding out what's happening right now. So when I think of the concept of backstories, I often think of flashbacks, which I'm not a big fan of. The second reason is when I think of backstory, I think of this oftentimes very generic fact that a character just says out loud to another character that's supposed to mean something horrible and somehow make me feel bad for them and somehow sum up their whole experience. A perfect example is this in the movie Black Hat, which I do not like. At one point, these two characters, there's all this action, and then they pause and they're driving, and the side character turns to the main character, and she's like, "My parents died in 9/11." And it's so horrible because you can tell that there is no character development that allows you to understand who this character is. It's literally just action. Oh, quick, we need her to say something that feels the most traumatic version that would make you be like, oh, the poor girl, like she's been through so much. And saying my parents were killed in 9/11 is just the worst version of a backstory example. And so that's often what I see in movies, is characters just turning to another person and telling them the worst thing that happened in their life. And then you just accept that that's what happened in their life. So as a writer, I have really not done, I'll do a basic, like think about where they came from and stuff like that, but I'm really not too concerned about their backstory when I write their characters. I am very much writing here and now. What changed for me was I was listening to this interview on the DGA, the Directors Guild of America podcast with about Marty Supreme, the director, Safdie, and he was talking about how the question they asked is how his worlds feel so believable. Every character feels so grounded in reality, and it's interesting. And he said that for every character that shows up on screen, regardless if they have dialogue or not, he creates a specific memory that allows them to latch on to that idea, that character, that would give them backstory. The example he then gave was that Marty's girlfriend, played by Odessa, he told her, the memory I have for you is when you and Marty were young. Marty's always got this dream. He always knows what he wants to be, who his dream is, what he's going to do. You don't know your dream. You don't even have a dream. And so when you guys were young, you watched King Kong when it came out, and you saw the actress in the movie, and you thought, I want to be like her. You chose her as your dream. And for the rest of the movie, you see her kind of playing into acting into these dramatic moments and kind of practicing being an actress, so to speak. But what was so profound to me is his idea of backstory was a very specific emotional memory. Somehow hearing that and thinking, not actually removing this generic, tragic backstory and focusing in on a specific emotional memory, really triggered into me something that I realized was missing from my characters. And when I began to think about specifically one of my main characters, I realized that right now where I'm at the script is one of the biggest flaws, as I know that this character is missing something major. There's a component to the story arc that's missing. And I realized this because I crafted and wrote her for such a specific reason in the script that she lacked any believability about what was surrounding her. So what I did was I immediately sat down and I wrote out a specific emotional memory for each character or backstory. And not only did I write where they came from, but I did the basic details, but I tried to hone in, and I know these characters pretty well now, but thinking about how did they arrive here. And what was powerful is that I began to realize that we as human beings don't just show up and this is who we are. I am the product of hundreds and thousands of decisions I made, and also decisions that were made that affected my life, that affect who I am and how I respond and think about the world. And so what was interesting is when I actually created these specific memories and moments, backstories that don't show up in the screenplay, that I imagine happening when they were younger or recently, is that suddenly they became real. And I actually shifted. I was so impacted by it, and it answered this giant question. And now seeing this one main character, not just in the specific moment in time, but suddenly their whole history, I actually shifted and pivoted the entire structure of the main thematic element of the screenplay around the realizations and the decisions I discovered in creating these memories for multiple characters. And it was so powerful that I actually felt empathy for these characters. These characters which I created and I truly care about. You know, they say you should write every character you write, you should love and have love for, even if they're a villain. I really care about these characters, but I've always approached them from a perspective of my mind, of thinking about them like, oh, I can think about these characters and I really like who they are. The moment I created a history for them, emotional memory, I now felt like these were my friends. Like I actually could feel the pain they felt and what they had gone through. And I felt the story going deeper inside of me. And now when I think about my script and my story, I have this profound feeling in my body like, oh my gosh, these are real people. Like I can now feel their hurts, their pains, their longings, their desires. And when I write, I now know like what they got through in order to get to this point. I don't just see them in a single moment in time. I see everything they've been through, and that is what creates empathy, because now I can say, oh, I know what that feels like. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be that person, even though I created them with those ideas, those concepts like loneliness, or passion, or curiosity, whatever it was. I thematically thought about it. But once I had the memories, I now can relate to it on an emotional level, which is way more powerful for me to experience. So my major encouragement to you is, if you're struggling with your characters, this is the time to sit down and don't just write generic backstory, write a specific emotional memory of the moment in time that's specific to them that they have experienced. And I guarantee you, you are going to feel an incredible shift in your ability to relate to these characters. And once you can relate to them, you can write believable and emotionally compelling characters. So please let me know if this experience also has shaped the way you write. I know it has for me, and it changed the entire direction of my screenplay. And in fact, one of the main characters, in general, the whole script is about the concept of people being lonely. But being able to focus on empathy made me realize the different subtleties and variations of loneliness and how we arrive at loneliness in different ways, as well as also help me land on this core theme that these are all characters and people who are just trying to live a normal life, and how hard that actually is. And that I am so excited about this realization, because I think that so many stories about how to live a crazy, epic, do extraordinary things. And in this incredible moment, I actually found the heart of my story is actually about these people trying to live a normal life. And what does that actually mean? And how challenging is that? So I am so excited, and I had so much realization that I just couldn't wait to share it with you. Lastly, I want to give a quick update. I actually am now on Substack. So the great thing about Substack is if you subscribe to Substack, you will get an email notification every time I post a video, because I will also be putting it on Substack. So that's a great way to keep up with the content if you don't want to check YouTube all the time, but you want to know when the videos come out. I also will be using it as a little bit like a newsletter in the future, also to an additional platform to post updates about what I'm doing that maybe isn't content that I don't want to make a whole video for, but I feel really excited about and I want to share, even insights and screenshots or images of what I'm working on, maybe things that inspire me, just additional content that I feel like is valuable. I'm definitely not going to go crazy and flood your inboxes with just useless information, but I did want you to know that you can subscribe on Substack if that's going to be an easier way to keep up with everything. Thank you guys for keeping up and for following along. I will see you next Thursday, and I'll see you in the movies.